Alright, shalom, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, wherever I happen to post it. Now I'm going to go through history rather quickly. That way people can have a quick reference and what have you. And this is going to debunk atheism for the most part and what have you, right? So a lot of atheists and what have you try to say Christian this, Christian that, and pushing their values and everything else on us and blah, blah, blah. But the reality remains that that's complete ignorance is what they're permeating. And they utilize the conjecture under the pretense of science to substantiate their position, right? So me, I'm a Messianic Jew. Yeshua is a black Jew that proclaims salvation as other Jews, per John 4:22 with Romans 2, clarifying that a Jew isn't one by heredity, but by obedience to the Torah, which is 10 Commandments, which neither modern Christians nor Orthodox Jews follow. Now, to validate that rather quickly, when it comes to the 10 Commandments, you can look at what Emperor Constantine did 1700 years ago when he changed the Sabbath to Sunday, a literal day to worship the sun, which he took from the Egyptians, who took it from the Babylonians, where Nimrod was worshipped as the sun god Baal, his wife Semiramis was worshipped as Ishtar, the queen of heaven, where the concept of when you die you go to heaven comes from, and their son Tammuz, being born after the death of Nimrod, was worshipped as his reincarnation, becoming the new sun god Baal, right? That said, it's literal actual people, living human beings that were worshipped as deities. That stems all the way down the line through all the various cultures and what have you. So that's where the misconception that atheists have that, well, it's a matter of Christians pushing their beliefs on everybody. It's like, no, Babylonian tradition has been pushed on everybody more thoroughly than anything else, right? Again, starting with Emperor Constantine. So correlating that with Christianity is a logical fallacy. It's literally a fake. It's false. Because Christians haven't been Christians for the last 1700 years, right? So now, if you look at the Orthodox Jewish calendar, you'll see that one of the names of their months is named after Tammuz from Babylon. Go to Leviticus 23, which is part of the Torah being Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Leviticus 23 indicates what the holy days are, right? Passover, unleavened bread, Feast of Weeks, Shavuot, aka Pentecost, aka what Sunday. It should always be on Sunday. They don't follow it on Sunday most of the time, if any, at all, right? Because they don't follow the holy days as they're written. They follow rabbinic tradition, the vain traditions of men, and what have you, and Kabbalah, a lot of various dynamics. 613 mitzvah, right? And then you have Rosh Hashanah, which is the Feast of Trumpets, which occurs around September, when September literally means the 7th month, right? And if you notice in Leviticus 23, Rosh Hashanah is, or Feast of Trumpets, in other words, is the first day of the 7th month, right? That correlation. Then you have the Day of Atonement, Judgment Day, in other words, right? And then you have Feast of Booths, aka Feast of Tabernacles, and what have you, right? So that is per Colossians 2:16 and 17, a shadow of things to come, which is Revelations, right? Which most modern Christians, not observing the holy days and that properly, can't interpret what's going on in Revelations because they don't know what's going on, because they're not Christian, they're pagan, right? So there's their argument against Christianity. Oh, Christianity, this, oh, whimper, whimper, cry, cry, right? Now let's look at American history, right? So you had Freemasons and you had Protestants and what have you that founded our country, the founding fathers, right? That's why we have the 10 amendments to the United States Constitution are no different than the 10 Commandments, right? It gives everybody their freedoms, but people don't know how to assert their rights. Democrats being on the side of things where they want everything to be socialist, don't want us to live in a constitutional republic, and they promote the ideology that we live in a democracy. We don't live in a democracy, right? You can go to the Federalist Papers in Miami and it says that, well, we all have basically the same mindset and we're a small population, therefore we should have a republic. So they'll try to utilize conjecture and say that, well, we have a larger population dynamic and therefore we need to start mitigating the rights of the people and have majority rule over the minorities, right? So that's why they use the T-identity and everything else to sway people into the belief that, well, we're fighting for the individual rights of the people, when they're not, because they still want majority rule over the minority, and they're trying to interject somebody else's rights as being superior to somebody else's rights. That's supremacy, right? We live in a constitutional republic. Not any one citizen's rights supersede any other citizen's rights, right? So that's where they're going wrong there. You tie it in with the Freemasons. Freemasons, George Washington, slave owner. Freemason, Benjamin Franklin, slave owner. Benjamin Franklin was affiliated with the Hellfire Club out of Ireland, where the motto was "Do as thou wilt," right? Perform satanic rituals underneath the church, not understanding that the church above them was just as equally satanic. The Freemasons supported the Democrats supported the KKK, and instilled Jim Crow laws, still do to this day, right? When they're going up against the Second and First Amendment, what do you think that is? That's unconstitutional and therefore null and void automatically. American jurisprudence, unconstitutional acts. They have no right nor authority. They're in violation on the federal level of their oath of office under Title V, Section 3331, to protect and defend the United States Constitution. That's an act of treason under Title 18, Section 2381. Everybody that bears witness to it is in violation of Title 18, Section 2382, right? Because they're supposed to protect and defend the Constitution, right? So when they're talking about gun laws and what have you, that's automatically, again, a violation of our rights, and they're negating the fact that the citizens are the supreme sovereign in the country, right? That's the whole point of our foundation of our country, is that the monarchy and what have you was mitigating the rights of the citizens, of the people, in other words, right? And that's why we got away from the monarchy. Now, with the Freemasons, with their Great Reset agenda and what have you, they permeate notions such as evolution theory and the Big Bang Theory, because Charles Darwin, whether or not he was a Freemason himself, his dad and his grandfather definitely were. His grandfather is one that permeated the notions of the evolution theory and Big Bang Theory and instilled it into Darwin. And again, the Freemasons are prominently satanic, right? Freemasons have ties to the Knights Templar, which were considered heretics by heretics. Then they have ties to the Pythagoreans, right? Pythagoras being a squared plus b squared equals c squared, the Pythagorean theorem, right? Secret Society, they had a pentagram as their identifying mark, which correlates to Wiccan way, because a lot of their ideology stems off into Wiccan, right? You had two sects within that party, which one would hide behind a veil and they would dictate the scientific aspect to the religious, so to speak, and that's the same context they have in modern day, to where you have scientists, they want to permeate this notion that they're superior and they're trying to teach people when they're not. They're actually inferior, right? And that's the Greek ideology and what have you, but they didn't see a disparity between science and religion, and they worship the sun, right? Where does that come from? Again, going back with the Babylonians, right? Nimrod worshipped as the sun god Baal, son Tammuz worshipped as the sun god Baal. They're taking everything from Babylon, right? They even say in modern day they found correlation, connection to where the Pythagorean theorem actually stems directly from Babylon. That Pythagoras didn't find it himself, right? So you have that correlation. You see that the Washington, D.C. and what have you has all this different affiliation with symbolism for Freemasonry and everything else within. And you can see that. So it's white supremacy is ultimately what it is, right? But you'll have a lot of people that don't understand that, so they don't understand the context of actual science. They utilize the pretense, right? So going through dinosaur bones. When dinosaur bones were found, it was proclaimed that they existed millions of years ago, right? Where's the scientific method that validates that? There isn't a scientific method that validates that. Radiometric dating didn't exist until decades later, and it's still highly speculative and not a definitive method to date anything. Then you have radioactive carbon dating, which didn't exist until the 1940s or so, from what I gather, and it still requires carbon to be able to date anything. In other words, it can't date an organic material. It has to have carbon, and dinosaur bones consist primarily of sedimentary rock. Whatever is remaining that was once organic is completely inorganic. There's complete absence of carbon, so radioactive carbon dating can't date a dinosaur bone, and even if the carbon did exist, it would only be reliable for a few thousand years, right? So that's why that can't be utilized. So the stories that they existed millions of years ago and everything else, it's scientific fabrication. No different than them saying the Big Bang Theory, Big Bang had occurred this many millions of years or billions of years ago, or blah, blah, blah. All that is just arbitrary numbers being thrown out to get people to buy into their mentality that they're legit science. There is no science involved in that. And they'll say, well, cosmic red light and everything else. It's like, yeah, no bueno, right? So a lot of what people believe in modern day is complete fallacy. And because atheists don't want to follow the truth, follow reality, follow science themselves, they permeate the notions like the T-identity issue to try to substantiate that, oh, well, you're just, we're morally superior to you. You're hurting our feelings. Shalom.